Hey guys, this is Trey Bolin, and I'm so excited to share origin stories. And today I have a friend with me. His name is Jason Webb. We're going to talk about the pivots, the twists, the turns, all about Jason's origin stories. Everybody has an origin story, and I can't wait to share yours. So, Jason, welcome.
Thanks, Trey. It's great to have you or great to be on your show. I have a show as well, and I want to get you on there. But this origin story piece of this, I am super excited to tell my story. I love telling it. We all have a story, and stories is what really transcends life, right?
Yes, exactly. And I feel like God is the best storyteller. And I just take a little note from his page and really want to help people to
Yeah.
share where they came from, how they got to where they are. So, what were those early days like for you as an entrepreneur? I know you've got an interesting little story in the beginning.
Yeah. I actually grew up in a very actually pretty fairly poor. Didn't necessarily know it until I got older, but it was a very blue collar community. My mom was a teacher. My dad was a truck driver. They always had side gigs, as we call them, or side jobs, side
Mhm.
hustles, where they were making extra money. Well, as I grew up, I kind of just thought that that was just how it was, that we had to do that to survive, right? So early on in grade school, I actually started as an entrepreneur in grade school, where I bought the big boxes of Jolly Ranchers and I would take them to school and sell them, and I made money, and
I love
that worked
that.
for about 2 to 3 months until the cafeteria caught guard, and I got in some trouble for that. But that's where I
You're
started.
making more money than the cafeteria
I
ladies. We
I
can't have none of
was,
that,
yeah.
Jason.
I was buying the boxes for like $3 and I was selling them like the bars for like two for $1. So yeah, I did really well. Okay. So I
That's
started there, and
amazing.
then in my teens, with my dad, his side job was mechanicking. My grandpa, I grew up in that space, and so we started. I got into their business and flipping cars. Classic hot rods, old cars. We did that all through my teen years. I've just always been an entrepreneur. It's just something
Yeah.
that's kind of in my blood. I know that's with you too.
Yes. So I've got to ask. So,
Mhm.
what was the most fun car restoration that you did?
Oh, my first car, 1970 split bumper RS Camaro. We had a blast. I don't know why my dad thought it was a good idea for me to have that when I was 16. Because within the first few months, I wrecked it.
Well,
But
well, here I'm wondering what color is it? Like
oh,
that's all I want to know.
it was maroon with silver stripes,
Yes.
gorgeous color. And then, well, you know what? I got to build it twice because we wrecked it, and I got to build another one. So
That's so fun. That's awesome. I don't think I knew that about the car restoration.
yes,
With my dad being in the car detailing business, we are, well, and living in the Motor City or at least near it,
yes,
cars are a really big part of my life and my upbringing. So I think that's really awesome. So what happened after that? Okay, like you're a
yeah.
kid, you're selling the candy, then you're flipping cars, then what happened?
So I was the first person in my family to go to college, or actually graduate college. I won't say go to college, but graduate college. And so I was like, oh man, I got this down, right? And first person, my family, my friends, all of these things from the community I grew up with. Like, I got this. So in my early 20s, me and a buddy, we actually started a marketing company where we were putting lighted billboards on the back of semi trailers. Whole new concept. We actually had it patented. We went through like 40 or 50 different
Wow.
iterations of this. And then we caught the United States Postal Service's attention, because it was just a way to make extra money from them because we were
Yeah.
renting space in their vehicles. Well, we went to Washington D.C. and we presented it to them, and they were very interested in this. And so this was a couple-year process in doing this because
Yeah.
the government moves fairly slow. Well, we had hired in that midterm while we were building things up a CEO that we thought had more knowledge of the business. Well, before we had the contract signed with the United States Postal Service, the day before, put out a press release that said we had a partnership, which we
Oh
did not.
no.
Yes. So you can expect what
Uh,
happened. Lost
yeah.
everything. And in this whole process, we actually had a valuation on our company once that ink was dried of $300 million, because we were going to be acquired by a very big name marketing company that wanted
Mm,
the real estate. And so we would have been acquired. We would have been
yeah.
set. I'm like, this is in my early 20s. Like, this is
Yeah.
great, right? This is everything we want.
Uh, so
Oh,
what do you feel like you learned from that?
I've learned to really think through things in terms of
Mm,
people that I have around me, and trusting the values and the morals, and just really
mm.
diving into the actual people, not necessarily the skill set.
Yeah. I think
Mhm.
that's really insightful and really interesting because you can't just, in this day and age, we can't just trust people
Mhm.
I've had to learn that the hard way, unfortunately. I always try to believe the best, and I've gotten burned a lot. So
Yeah.
it's hard now moving forward to keep on believing the best. I don't know. Do you feel that way too?
Oh, I do completely. One thing I have before during that time too is I didn't have faith in my journey. I wasn't a
Mm,
follower. I believed in God, but didn't really follow a lot of this stuff. And so later in my life, as of course I that's everything in my life. And so
yeah,
I've learned to trust in God. But if we look biblically speaking, every man's going to fail us, and so we just have to know
yeah,
what we're going to be okay with and not.
yeah, exactly. Well, and then I think that's a pivot, right? That's a plot
Mhm.
twist. That's I've been thinking about plot twists lately as like
Love it.
tornadoes that like come into our lives. And I was talking to a friend and she was like, that sounds destructive and awful. And I was like, well, yeah, but sometimes we got to shake things up.
Mhm.
Sometimes things have to get like twisted on their end in order for us to be set in a new place. Maybe Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz having that mental picture, like she needed to be carried to a different place in order to have a different experience.
Mhm.
I don't know. Do you see plot twist as positive or negative? What do you think?
Oh, I think they're completely positive because they're a learning experience. Every kind of plot twist that you get into, every pit that you get into, there's always that peak at the end of that valley, right? That you got to keep climbing back out of, but it's learning experiences. So, through that as in my journey, the huge plot twist because I lost all that,
Yeah.
started a real estate company, going great. Well, of course, I had a title company, investment company, work, all of these different things. Well, then '08 came and we lost everything on that. So,
Wow. So
big
you
piece.
have like one negative experience and then another negative experience. So how did you come out of two different heavy experiences like that?
I realized that I had the wrong people around me, and there's a whole story around that in
Wow.
terms of my faith background.
Hmm.
I had no idea where to turn, what to do. I was going through a
Mm,
divorce, losing business, becoming a single father, bankruptcy, all of these things, and I just said, "What's the issue?" And I said,
yeah.
I wasn't following God." And so that's
Mm,
when that was that big plot twist. That was the big change that came where I actually went to a church. I remember my brother-in-law invited me to, and
mm,
came to it, and they started the sermon was on who you have around you, and I really dug into it. That was on a Sunday. I talked to the
yeah.
pastor afterwards, and he invited me to his office on Monday. I talked to him for like 2 hours, and then he invited me to the men's group on Tuesday night. So now I'm 3 days in a row where I've never did anything faith based before that, and that was where my journey began in faith, business, my growth, all of the positive steps, and everything else that I've had in my life.
Yeah, something that I'm hearing you say is that you had a moment and it was one day, and then the very next day you made another good choice, and the very next day you made another good choice. How do you think that kind of shaped the rest of your life?
One step at a time. That's still the way that I look
Mm,
at my life now. Yeah, we have great grand plans, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road,
yeah.
but you'll never get there until you take that first step. And so it's just one day at a time, making the correct decisions one day at a time, one step at a time, one choice at a time. Even if you don't, there's not going to be an outcome of this of good, but you're doing the right thing.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we can be so overwhelmed
Mhm.
and to think of like, oh my gosh, what is the next thing that we have to do? But that advice is so good. Like, do the next right
Mhm.
thing, do the next right thing. I know that Elizabeth Elliot was famous for saying that the next right thing, the next right thing,
Mhm.
and following that path. So I'm curious, what happens next? What happens next in the
Oh,
journey?
okay. So big story. I like to talk. So let's see. After I lost all the real estate stuff, their legal issue, all of these things, became a single father. I'm like, I gotta do something. And so I
Yeah.
actually started working for a tire company, commercial tires, biggest tires in the world. Everybody sees them on semi trucks, tractors, heavy equipment, all of these things. And just because of my background in the trucking industry, my dad and grandpa, and the signage, the company, all of these things,
Yeah.
I had contacts. And so I had a friend that worked for one of them. He brought me on board as a delivery guy, making $11 an hour because I needed something for my kids.
Yeah.
Um, well, soon they realized that that wasn't necessarily where I was best suited, so they
Mm,
moved me more into the sales department. And within 3 years, I was the top salesman in the company, over 22 salesmen.
wow.
Just building that business, and I was in that world for the last, I think, 16 years, 17 years, somewhere around there, and built multiple companies,
Yeah.
multiple different businesses. Ended up being a director of sales, lots of things. So.
I think it's really interesting because my big takeaway that I'm hearing you say is you started out where you had that entry point,
Mhm.
and I think so many people are looking for the millionaire tomorrow.
Yes.
They're like, how can I have $1 million in sales and do all of this? Your story started here.
You gotta
Start
start.
in the mailroom,
Yep.
work your way up. What encouragement could you give to someone that is just starting out that's maybe stuck in that entry level point?
Don't let people hold you back. Like, know where you want to get, know what your goals are, and again, make that right choice right now. Make that next step, and then take the next step. But do not be discouraged, because there's multiple steps along my path in that, even
Mm,
in that industry, where I had people say, well, you're really good in this role. I don't want to move it to the next role.
mm,
Well, sorry, but that's my plan, is to continue to grow and get
yeah,
better at what I do, and hone in my craft. And so opportunities are presented to you where you don't necessarily know where they're coming from. We do,
yeah,
we do as faith believers, but
right.
we just keep doing the right thing, and good things happen.
Yes. Yeah. I think that is true. A lot of people like to talk about reciprocity
Mhm,
and putting out good into the world and mantras and karma, but I do think that there is that biblical concept of you reap what you sow,
mhm,
right?
complete,
We put
complete.
out good seeds, then that good fruit will grow.
Mhm.
This this season I planted 1,200 sunflower seeds and I had 500 of them not grow at all.
No. Yeah.
And I was so frustrated.
Mhm,
And I said, what did I do? What did I do different? We planted the same exact way. We
mhm.
actually planted earlier. What was different? My source, where I got the seeds from.
Yep.
They said they were a good company,
Mhm.
but
Ended up not working.
none of the seeds grew. So going back to the company that was a little more expensive,
uh
but really had the stuff, right? And
Yep.
I think about that. Sometimes we look to cut corners. Sometimes
Mhm,
I'm not trying to get rich quick because we know it doesn't happen, but maybe try to take an easier route. What
mhm.
would you have to say for those people that are like trying to take an easier path? Is there an easy path to success?
Um, yes and no. There can be an easier path, and the easier path in my journey has been having people around me that are where
Yeah.
I want to be. So mentors, coaches, guides, these
Mm,
things. But in terms of taking shortcuts and everything else, there is no shortcuts. You
yeah.
have to put the work in. Even if
Yeah.
you have those mentors and coaches, things, you still have to put the work in to succeed. Nobody's going to do it for you.
Yeah.
Biblically speaking, we're the ones supposed to be tilling that ground. We're supposed to be working in that.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be doing that. And so do your part, and just know that you are working. And one big thing with this is serve. Like,
Mm.
the more you serve, the more you'll get. The old Zig Ziglar quote is, "Get everybody what they want, and you'll get everything that you want." Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that concept of helping others, of
Mhm.
being service minded. In my experience, I was always that front facing person
Mhm.
in a company. I did a lot of reception work. I did a lot of customer service. I love people. I love community. It just made sense to put me in those roles.
Yeah.
So thinking about that, like what do you think could be something that would help people to you said coaches. What should we look for in a coach? What would be those good things to think about when you're looking for a mentor? What do you look for?
I look for people that have the same values as me, that that believe in
Wow.
the foundational pieces as me. God first, everything that we do,
Mhm.
and then where they're at, where I want to be. When we
Mm,
look at these bigger coaches, the bigger business owners that are millionaires, billionaires, these type of things, I want to get in the room around them. I want to learn
yeah.
what they know, and that way I'm not struggling with the things that they struggle with in the past, and just
Mm,
start to build those relationships. It's not what you can get out of them, it's
mm,
also what you can give them. It needs to be a mutually beneficial relationship, because a lot of times us as humans, we just want to be like, we want to take, want to take, want to take.
yeah.
We're going to be consumers, right? But we need to be up there providing as well. So these
Mhm.
people, you think they have everything? They're just like you and me. They put their pants on the same way. They've had the struggles. They've done all these
Yeah.
things, and I guarantee there's things that you can do to provide them, that you can serve them. Whether it's just
Mm,
company, whether it's this or that, there's so many different things that you can
yeah.
serve them as well, and then also get things in return. But you have to be reciprocal in
Yeah. I think you're right. And I love
that.
what you're saying about adding value.
Mhm.
I think if we seek to add value to each other's lives, like, wouldn't the world be a better place if
Right.
all we tried to do was outserve each other? I know that's something that my dad used to say when I was a kid. He was talking to me about helping my brothers and sisters out and helping my mom in the kitchen. He was like, wouldn't it be so much greater if we all just thought about what can I do to be a helper?
Yes.
And that's something that I've tried to embody in my family, encouraging my kids to be sunshine makers, to try to be like a Pollyanna of thinking the best, believing the best. And I think I'm trying to instill that in them because I know in myself, I actually struggle with that. I'm not an optimist. Most people are very surprised by that. I'm a pessimist, but I'm fighting so hard for my
Mhm.
optimism. I'm renewing my mind. I want to think the right things. So I'm putting, like you were saying, different things in place so I will be able to better do that. Now, I always like to kind of close down our time together by asking the super fun question of what would you say to someone who was in the middle of their plot twist? What would you say to encourage them?
This is just a season. The sun comes
Mm,
up tomorrow. Take that first step, make the right decision because that can change the rest of your life. So step out of your
yes.
shell and get uncomfortable. Be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes, I think that is such wise advice. How do you think, just to end real quick,
Mhm,
how do you think you have grown personally, professionally, spiritually, if you want to share about that,
mhm.
because of all your plot twists?
Oh, like if you saw me 20 years ago to where I'm at today, you would see two completely different people. I was selfish. I always
Mm,
I thought about myself and what I could do for get out of this and do this. And
mm,
now you look at what I do. I serve with everything I do. Everything I do is to lift up the kingdom of God. With
mm.
my faith background, whether it's ministry,
Yeah.
business, I lead with that in everything I do because I love it and it fills me up so much.
Mhm.
Just the peace that I have with that, it's not that I'm striving for something just to get something because you're never going to be happy with that because you get it, you want the next thing, you want the next thing, you
Yeah.
want the next thing. If you can just be at peace with where you're at, with what you're doing, and
Mhm.
making sure that you're moving forward in every little step, changes the game.
Yeah. I think that's so true. So, what do you do now, Jason?
I do a lot of things, as you know, Trey. Where
I know.
I have the profitablesalesman.com. I coach and teach sales. We have our programs that we work with. I have a lead generation company that we do. And actually, just recently in the last 6 months, I actually became the VP of global sales with Abundant Television, which is the fastest growing Christian streaming service in the world. So I get to talk about God every day.
That's amazing. So what's the best way for people to get connected with you? I know you just rattled off all these
A
things and
lot.
I'm super excited. It'll be in the show notes, but what's the best way to get connected? Is there a platform that you prefer?
Yep, Facebook. We jump
Great.
on Facebook. You can look up our community or just go to our website because you can get it all in there. Theprofitablesalesman.com. You can see our Facebook groups, our connections, everything that we do on there. Again, theprofitablesalesman.com. I know it's kind of long.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, thanks for joining me. I was so excited to talk about your journey. I'm leaving very encouraged today, and I hope that everybody else is. So I hope that you will join us next time for our next origin stories.